I'm an employment lawyer in Seattle, Washington, and I represent employees who bring lawsuits against their employers. A lot of the time, these lawsuits will involve HR complaints. And if an employment lawsuit involves an HR complaint, the way that the employee made that HR complaint will be incredibly important to the case. And it can cut both ways. Sometimes an HR complaint helps the case, but other times it hurts the case. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips about how to make an HR complaint in the right way. So stick around. My first tip, and the most important tip I will talk about today, is this: make the HR complaint in writing. If you've already watched my other video about why HR is not your friend, then you'll already know that HR people sometimes lie to protect the company that employs them. Because at the end of the day, HR people work for the company, not you. So if you only verbally give your complaint to HR, then by the time a lawyer like me gets involved, that HR representative will somehow magically have forgotten about everything you told them. And they may even deny that you complained in the first place. So if you complain to HR, just be sure to create a written record by making your complaint in writing. And follow whatever company procedures your company has for HR complaints, just also make sure to do it in writing. And if the HR person insists that you talk to them verbally, just send a confirming email immediately after the conversation for the same reasons we just talked to create a written record. Okay, let's move on to the next tip. My next tip is to focus on illegal conduct in your complaint. If you've watched my other videos on at-will employment and when to make an HR complaint, you'll know that only certain complaints offer you legal protection. I'll link to those videos in the description, and if you haven't already, watch those videos for a more in-depth explanation of this tip. But here's the gist of it. If you make a complaint to HR about the company's illegal conduct, then you get legal protection prohibiting your employer from retaliating against you in most circumstances. However, if you complain about anything else, the law offers no protection at all, and the company can retaliate against you. And I see this happen all the time, where an employee makes a legitimate but not legally protected complaint to HR, and the company then turns around and fires the employee for complaining. Well, if the employee's complaint is not addressing any illegal activity, the company is permitted to do that under the at-will employment rule. So that's why this tip is so important. If you make a complaint to HR, just make sure that your complaint is addressing the company's illegal conduct. Let me give you some examples of complaints about illegal conduct that would give you legal protection. Complaining about discrimination based on your protected characteristics, like your age, race, gender, LGBT status, or disability, just to name a few. Complaining about harassment based on one of those protected characteristics. Complaining about inadequate accommodations for your pregnancy or disability. Complaining about wage law violations like your employer's refusal to pay overtime to a non-exempt worker. Complaining about unsafe working conditions that violate workplace safety laws like OSHA. Those are just a few of the most common illegal activities that I see employees complain about. And if you complain about one of those things, you get legal protection against retaliation. So just remember to complain about the company's illegal activity, because if you complain about anything else, you get no protection under the law as an at-will employee. My next tip is to write the HR complaint in a professional way. What I mean by that is to write it in a way that is not rude or abrasive. And there are two reasons to make your complaint sound professional. First, people generally just don't respond well to rude or abrasive language. So if you are making a complaint about something that you want the company to fix, you're going to have more luck if you write it in a professional and courteous way. So it's just a better strategy. But secondly, and more importantly to your legal rights, is that companies can fire you for being rude. So believe it or not, even if the thing you are complaining about is legally protected, complaining in a way that is rude or abrasive will give the company a legitimate reason to fire you, which they can use as a defense in court. Let me give you an example. Say Jane Doe feels like her manager is treating her differently than her male colleagues. So she writes a complaint to HR. However, in describing the situation in her complaint, she refers to everyone as derogatory terms and uses expletives to describe the company's conduct. Then the company turns around and fires Jane for her rude and abrasive comments. In that case, the company is going to argue that its decision to terminate Jane had nothing to do with what she was complaining about, but rather how she was complaining. And believe it or not, employers can sometimes win this argument, especially if they can show that they've terminated other workers for similar rude or abrasive conduct. So just be professional in the way you complain to HR. My next tip is to simply follow the company's reporting rules if they have them. Some companies have gigantic HR departments, and other companies use third-party HR departments, and still others don't even have HR departments to begin with. Whatever the case may be, if the company has some procedures about how to complain to HR, it is always a good idea to just follow those procedures. Because if you do not follow the company's procedures, the company may argue that it never got your complaint in the first place because you didn't submit it in the right way. The company may or may not have success with this argument, but if you just follow the company's procedures, they can't make the argument in the first place. And as a side note here, if the company does not have an HR department, just use your best judgment to send your complaint to the right person who has managerial authority in the company. Okay, here's my final tip. It's just to simply keep a copy of your complaint. Remember back to why we wanted to make the complaint in writing in the first place. It's because HR people have a tendency of lying to protect the company that employs them. If the only copy of the complaint is in HR's possession, by the time I get involved, HR will have no record of the complaint and they will deny that they even got it from you in the first place. So if you complained via email, print it or forward it to your private email. And if it's handwritten, just take a picture. Whatever you do, just make sure to keep a copy of the complaint. Okay, there you have it. Now you know how to complain to HR. Do it in writing, focus on illegal conduct, be professional, follow the company's rules, and keep a copy of your complaint. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and share this video with other workers. The more we hold employers accountable for their wrongdoing, the more we protect other workers. That's all for me this week. See you next time.